So this is the second update on the video I made discussing the Canonicity of Judgment, which by the way, I recommend you watch my first update because I responded to a bunch of commonly brought up points. Now I'm just going to say it up front that my feelings on this topic have flipped, not entirely since I am still skeptical towards the accuracy of the timeline of events, but I will say that I feel more positively than negative in regards to Judgment's connection to the mainline Yakuza games. But before I bring up the argument that changed my mind the most, I want to briefly address the missing Don Quixote. Now honestly, I regret bringing this up because I feel like it ended up attracting a lot of the attention in my comment section. Essentially, the main rebuttal is that the developers probably lost the license to it, which I'm willing to believe is true. The thing is though, I only brought it up because it did legit pose some questions regarding the consistency between the games, although looking back, I probably never should have brought it up, especially because that was never a big point against the canon theory. My argument mostly comes from the Kamurocho 3K plan. The other inconsistencies are honestly pretty trivial, and I even explained in my video why I didn't see them as that much of a big deal. But all it really did in the end was make people focus on that instead of the actual reason why I doubted its canonicity, so I apologize for that. But now that I've addressed that, I want to get to a more important point. I did say in my update video that when it came to canonicity, I value consistency and statements from staffers in order to consider it as that, and I got a comment from Viper Gaming 23 who claimed to have asked some of the people behind the localization team on Twitter if Judgment truly was canon or not. I asked them to link the tweet and they thankfully did. And as a matter of fact, I saw two confirmations from two different localizers, one still working even till this day and is pretty active on Twitter. Now, as much as I'd like to consider this definitive proof, there are still some points of contention. For one, these tweets were made before Yakuza 7 came out in the West, and when you look at the original tweet that started this conversation, they were clearly talking about Judgment in relation to the pre-7 mainline Yakuza games, so it is possible they weren't taking into account the events of Yakuza 7, although it is worth noting that the game had already been released in Japan, so they may have started playing it already. Also, it's possible they were given the material in order for them to start translating, although I'm not entirely knowledgeable on game translation cycles. The other thing I want to say is that these are members of the localization team, they're not actual writers, so their assessment of the story layout might be arguably their own personal interpretation, especially because the reasoning behind the canonicity mostly comes from the city design and side missions referencing events from the Yakuza games, and I've already explained in my previous video why references can still be refuted and are not end-all be-all. Although to be fair, it is very possible they may have gotten some confirmation from some of the writers or developers during the localization process, which is why I'm still willing to take their words seriously, but I think it's at least worth pointing this out. Regardless, right now I'm somewhere around 60% sure it's canon. Still need some clarification on the Kamurocho 3K plan and why it straight up does not make any sense to coexist with the events of Judgment. If a sequel comes along and this is better explained, even if it doesn't make complete sense, as long as they address it on some level, I'll at least write this off as just a plot hole and consider Judgment 100% canon. But for now, it's the one thing keeping me at 60%, which is higher than I was before at least. Anyway, short video but straightforward. Have to continue writing that story I promised to publish soon, and let's all have a good year. Goodbye.